in the country. Unfortunately, most drivers don't really get that involved with the kind of issues, which is why I'm making speeches like this, presentations like this. Usually you get a ticket, you really get upset and angry for a while, you pay it and move on. And I'm hoping, as we talk about some of the things tonight, you'll understand why we encourage people to not only contest those tickets, but also get involved in some other issues. There we go. I wanted to give you a little bit of plug for the National Motorist Association. Sam mentioned we were founded almost 35 years ago and are the leading motorist rights organization in the country. We have, it pales in comparison to 200 and some million licensed drivers. We have about 8,600 active members in all states across the country. I will say this not just because I'm in Pennsylvania, but listening to you tonight and listening to our members, our Pennsylvania members are among the most active we have anywhere. They're very much involved in what we're about. To learn more about the National Motorist Association, we have a table in the back with some literature. Some of our most recent member magazines. I picked a selection that I think might be of interest to you. Feel free to take those. We have some pamphlets about the organization itself, and of course I'm going to be around for a while too. So feel free to check out more about the National Motorist Association. Well, I should be a lag time. In talking about the challenges that we're facing through our driving freedoms, what I want to cover tonight is the 6 primary areas of advocacy that we get involved with the National Motorist Association. Those are the challenges that we face daily. And then I want to wrap up by giving 4 action items that we should each get involved with as far as I'm concerned. Some for our own constitutional protections, some to help deal with some of the challenges that we're dealing with. The first advocacy area, and these may seem like common sense, but believe me, the issues that we deal with daily are pretty amazing. Traffic safety through sound engineering. The example I've got here, and I'll tell you a little more about this graph for those that aren't able to see it. The founding issue of the National Motorist Association back in 1982 was to repeal the national maximum speed limit. If you recall, there was a 55-mile-per-hour limit by edict by the federal government at that time. It took several years, but the MMA was the leading proponent, the leading advocate to get that repealed. We still hear, particularly from the car insurance industry, studies put out every year and kind of hand-waving of, until we go back to 55 miles per hour, we're going to have death and mayhem on our highways. The reality is our fatality rates on U.S. highways are as low as they've ever been, certainly much lower than they were 20 years ago when we had the national maximum speed limit. This particular chart drives home a point that I want to make about what we advocate for is based in sound engineering. 50 years ago, a researcher with the Department of Transportation did an extensive study on and statistics on the risk of crash involvement in relation to speed of travel. And what he found was, if you look at the vertical axis, which is the y-axis, that's the risk of crash involvement per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. The x-axis, the horizontal axis, is the deviation from average speed. So what that is what he looked at, and by the way, this has been reaffirmed by researchers every decade since then. Human behavior, driver behavior doesn't change that much over time, is your lowest risk of crash involvement. If you look at those curves, it's nighttime driving, daytime driving, and freeway driving. They're kind of parabolic curves. The low point is the lowest risk of crash involvement. And if you look at it closely, it's at or even a few miles per hour above the average speed of traffic around you. In other words, keep up with the traffic flow. And it's kind of common sense, because if you look at, actually, if you're below the average speed, which is the more tentative, kind of the more cautious drivers, the risk of those kind of drivers being involved in accidents goes up very, very sharply. Because there's more interactions between vehicles, there's more braking, there's more accelerating, passing, lane changing, frustration from other drivers trying to get around slow drivers. So 55 miles per hour, 75 miles per hour, the real key on non-residential streets is setting speed limits so that they match the natural flow of traffic, and then set the roads up so that the drivers keep up with traffic. Second challenge we have is, again, the common sense. The traffic laws are fairly written and reasonably enforced. And I can't think of a time more than today that this is more important, particularly the reasonably enforced part of it. With Baton Rouge, with Dallas, with traffic stops turning into civil unrest and violence, it's more important than ever that motorists and the motoring public have respect for traffic laws. And to do that, the traffic laws need to be reasonable. And unfortunately, the traffic justice system, pretty much probably since the horse and buggy days, are kind of built around command and control tactics and gotcha tactics like speed traps, like ticket cameras. And respect is a two-way street. So it's very important for motorists to respect the law, but the law needs to respect the motorists too, and that starts with how the laws are written and how they're enforced. I want to spend a little more time on this particular issue, and it ties into what I was just talking about: freedom from arbitrary traffic stops and unwarranted searches and seizures. I'm going to share a couple slides with you that I don't know if it's easy to shock you or not, and I suspect that they may shock you a little bit. Before I do that, though, I want to read 54 words of powerful significance. You may well be aware of them, but every time I give a talk like this, I like to just refresh everybody's memory. And it's the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. It's only 54 words. I think our founding fathers liked run-on sentences, but beyond that, what they wrote was just incredible. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. I'm not sure there's any other walk of life scenario other than motorists that this becomes kind of a daily thing. The Department of Justice, the Federal Department of Justice, has an asset forfeiture fund. Civil asset forfeiture fund. Now, these numbers are not just with motorists and traffic stops, but that is a major subset of these numbers, and it's an epidemic. In 1986, that fund had $94 million in it. Less than 30 years later, it increased 54-fold to $5.1 billion. And the rate is, if anything, is increasing. As you look at the last couple of 4 to 5 year periods, it's doubled each 4 to 5 years. There was a little bit of reform last year by the U.S. Department. The Attorney General kind of put the kibosh on some state practices of some of the civil forfeitures. But when we talk a little bit later in this presentation about knowing your rights during a traffic stop, it's really important because more and more we're hearing stories about motorists being stopped, being asked questions about how much cash they have. Now, from a law enforcement standpoint, what they're looking for, Tennessee is famous or infamous for this basically, is with the north-south interstate, they're thinking, well, if somebody's carrying a lot of cash, there's probable cause for it to be drug running or something else. So they're starting up, they're asking, you don't have to answer questions like that. So impounding of vehicles at checkpoints, it's really, really gotten out of hand. In fact, it's gotten so out of hand that What you're looking at in the red line is what I just talked about, the asset forfeiture by the Department of Justice. The green line is the sum of all burglaries in the United States. So in 2013, sometime during that year, the U.S. government became a bigger thief than all the burglars in the country. Clearly, something has to be done, and I think it starts with us knowing what to do, what not to do, particularly during the traffic stop. That we can kind of control. Freedom from invasive surveillance. There's a lot of things about technology I like. This kind of technology talk about challenges to our Fourth Amendment rights. I have 5 images up here, which I'll explain, but I could have put many, many more. Would have been too crowded of a slide. From ticket cameras, red light and speed cameras, which unfortunately Pennsylvania is becoming more and more familiar with. It's moving beyond just Philadelphia having cameras. To drones, which are not just for monitoring traffic, but now they're being used for enforcement and tracking of vehicles, capturing license plates and so forth. So that whole photo enforcement end, which I know Jim wants to hear more about, and I will be talking more about. The device in the middle is kind of nasty. And it's got a nasty name. It's Universal Forensic Extraction Device. And basically, you hook that up to like a cell phone, within 2 minutes you can download every piece of information on that cell phone. And a lot of us know that, I'm not this way, but your cell phone is kind of an image of your life. It's all your contacts, your friends who you talk to, your email, even your location. There's some GPS tracking that's in the phone. So when you think about traffic stops and, we've got texting bans while driving and some bans talking on your phone, if you see the flashing lights behind you, obviously you don't want to make any sudden movements. And I'm not downgrading law enforcement, they're doing their job, but you don't want to tempt them. If you've got a cell phone, I kind of slide it out of sight, because we're heading into times, and we've already had some instances where, without a warrant, they hook up one of these, they've asked the motorist, you get stopped, the traffic stop, you get anxious, you get scared, and most people prefer chatting, which is not the right thing to do. And says, I have nothing to hide, so sure, you hand them their phone, ostensibly to say, okay, were you on your phone a few minutes ago, which is why I stopped you, so that might be a violation. But then they scoop up all this other information about you. It's nasty business, and it's as big a challenge to our Fourth Amendment rights as I can think of. In the lower right-hand corner is a vehicle black box. Now, we've had these for a long time, over 20 years, to the point where almost every car on the road today has a black box. I'm jumping ahead of myself, but from a technology standpoint, we've had these for 20 years, but the law hasn't kept up with it. Only 12 out of 50 states have any laws in the books at all protecting the rights of a vehicle owner to who owns the data that the event data recorder records. Pennsylvania is not one of those 12. So after 20 years, most states have no laws protecting motorists. Or essentially, you bought the car, you bought the black box, you own the data, but that's not stipulated in most states. Another piece of nasty business is in the lower left. I don't know if you can see that very well, but basically it's a sheriff's car, and on the hood is festooned with a series of cameras. And in fact, if we showed you the whole vehicle, the hood would also have an array of cameras. These are automated license plate readers, where this car would be cruising down the road and snatching up images of license plates on pretty much any car they run across, either parked or on the road movement. And it's not just capturing the license plate number, it's also a time and date stamp and a GPS location. Now, if this was just law enforcement, I don't really have that much of a problem with it. If they're looking for people with outstanding warrants, they upload the license plate, check it against the law enforcement database, and look for, like I say, outstanding warrants or something like that. The problem is the biggest operator of automated license plate readers is a for-profit company by the name of Vigilant Solutions. They have vehicles like this, not marked as law enforcement, but vans that go around with cameras scooping up license plate information to the point where they kind of brag about collecting 70 million license plates a month. With the tracking capability, like I said, so over time they probably, can kind of start tracking where people are. But what they do is they sell the information. It's not looking for us anymore. They will sell it to whoever's interested. Has your insurance expired? They'll sell that information to the insurance companies. The repo man, if you're late on a payment, they'll check it against the database and then forward the information for a fee to those companies, and on it goes. So automated license plate readers, a lot of our lobbying is to restrict the use from companies like Vigilant and just for law enforcement purposes only. We haven't won that battle, and it's a state-by-state battle at this point. Full due process for motorists. I mentioned constitutional rights. This is where, Jim and I were talking about red light cameras. It's a prime example. The NMA has some major objections to photo enforcement. Chief among them is a camera rarely can make a positive identification of the driver. Yes, it can grab the license plate, identify the vehicle, but as far as the driver, at best, it might be kind of a sketchy image. So what happens is, a ticket is automatically mailed to the registered owner of the vehicle, whether that person was driving at the time of the alleged incident or not. So they're forcing the owner of the vehicle to show up to court, and even if they were nowhere near the incident, have to defend themselves. Cameras, well, let me put it this way, with a live officer making a traffic stop, number one, people can make judgments. So we would like to think that when an officer stops, he or she would look at the total situation, have the context of the situation. A camera can't do that. The other thing is, if you're going to challenge a ticket, you can question the officer in court. You can't question the camera. Unfortunately, most courts give what they call judicial notice to camera evidence, which basically says it's true without challenge. So we have a number of reasons, like I say, that we're against cameras, but they are the epitome of guilty until proven innocent. Other than speed limit reform, we probably spend most of our time at the NMA on photo enforcement issues and cameras. The good news is the red light cameras have been declining, the use of cameras have been declining drastically over the last few years. Like I said, they're being introduced a little more actively in Pennsylvania because there's a profit factor involved with them. Reasonable highway user fees. Four pillars of revenue collection from motorists are all kinds of different fees and surcharges, fines, gas tax, or other taxes for that matter, and tolls. What I want to share with you, I mentioned that we urge people to, whenever they can, to challenge any ticket, traffic ticket they get. Here's a major reason why. A moving violation ticket in California, by the way, all states do this, not as bad as California, but they will put all kinds of overhead charges on a basic fine. Until more people challenge their tickets and force the courts to face up to these kinds of things, we're going to continue seeing, in this case, and this is an actual ticket we got from a member who shared with us a few years ago, basically a $100 ticket turned into a $500 fine. And so I went ahead and listed all of the different little accounts. And I'm not saying some of these programs aren't worthwhile, but you read through them. City Traffic Fund, Courthouse Facilities Construction Fund, DNA ID Fund, state conviction fees. My favorite might be State Criminal Surcharge Fund. These are all criminal surcharges as far as I'm concerned. Auto fingerprint ID, state night court, they all add up in this particular case.